I will try to update the global situation of antimicrobial resistance and the impact of COVID-19. Let me start with this slide. Probably all of you have been seeing this figure before. It's in 2017 the World Health Organization list or reported a list of microorganisms against we desperately need new antibiotics. And in this list, they have different groups. The first group was priority one, was a critical group, and in this group we include Cinetobacter baumannii, carbapenem resistant, but also we already have Cinetobacter baumannii pan-resistant, so resistant to all antimicrobial agents, even colistin. So that could be or is a real problem. And another additional problem with Acinetobacter is that the new antibiotics, such as ceftazidime, avibactam, or ceftolozane, tazobactam, didn't work against Acinetobacter baumannii. So probably this is why it's listed as a leader in this list of microorganisms. The second one is Pseudomonas aeruginosa, also multi-drug resistant, including, of course, carbapenem resistance. And Enterobacteriales, mainly ESBL and carbapenemase producing E. coli and Klebsiella pneumoniae. And I will focus on these four microorganisms, and I will start with either E. coli or Klebsiella pneumoniae producing ESBL. This is data from the CDC, as you probably have seen several times. In the left side, you have the change between 2009 and 2020 about ESBL producing E. coli. There's been an increase in the color, and here we have the color code. Green means prevalence less than 1%, and the dark red, it's more than 75%. As you can see here, in most of the countries in Europe, from 2009 to 2020, has been an increase, a change in the color to an increased percentage of ESBL producing E. coli. The same happened with Klebsiella. This is data from Klebsiella pneumoniae producing ESBL from 2009 to 2012. As you can see here, in 2020, we already have most of the countries in Europe with a red or red dark color. That means that we have prevalence of ESBL producing Klebsiella higher than 25%. Most of them are, some of them are with a percentage between 50 and 75%. If we just select some data from different countries and see the trend from 2006 to 2020, as you can see in this slide, for some countries, or for all of the countries, there has been a steady increase in the prevalence of ESBL producing E. coli. Even in countries like Norway. I put here Norway because Norway is a small country, I will say, and in addition, they are using a very rational consumption of antibiotics. So we suppose that the prevalence of ESBL producing E. coli will be kept at low level, still a low level because has been increased, but still at 6% of the prevalence of ESBL producing E. coli. But as you can see here, there is steady increase in the percentage of resistant as the same in other countries. If we talk about Klebsiella pneumoniae, also analyzing the trend in the increase of the prevalence is going from here in Norway again. It's increasing a little bit. It's arriving almost to 10%. So it is the difference between E. coli and Klebsiella. And Klebsiella the prevalence is higher. In Norway again, there is a steady increase, and they are reaching by 2020 a 10%. Other countries, the percentage of resistance is really high, over 50%. If we move to carbapenem resistance Enterobacteriales, this is a table that probably you know better than me. There are different classes of carbapenemases. and among them, Class A, Class B, and Class D. This is the main types included in Class A: GES, IMEI, SME, and KPC. In Class B, the main carbophenamases are NDM, BIMP, and IMP, and in Class D, all the oxacylinases. Some of them are inhibited by clavulanic acid, and other, the metallo-beta-lactamases, the Class B, are inhibited by the EDTA. And the genetic location can be either plasmid or chromosomal located. This is the resistant, the prevalence of resistant in 2020, carbapenem resistant E. coli or Klebsiella pneumoniae. As you can see here, we are still having a very low level of resistance to carbapenems in E. coli, lower than 1% in all countries in Europe. However, when we move to Klebsiella, we have some countries with a high level of resistance, mainly Italy and Greece. And if we focus on this data, and as you can see here, this is Greece. Greece from 2006 to 2020. Now the prevalence is 66.3%. And this is Italy. And Italy make a switch in 2009, probably due to the fact that there is a clone of Klebsiella pneumoniae, the ST258 carrying KPC3, that was incorporated into the country and spread all over the country, and that probably explained the increase in carbapenem resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae to a level of 29.5% in 2020. Here, Spain is this blue dark color. We have a little increase, but probably you will still increasing in the forthcoming years, because carbapenems are used a lot in our hospital. And this is Croatia, when you can see how also here an increase in the percentage of carbapenem resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae. This is data concerning to the prevalence of carbapenemases, mainly KPC, which is Class A, as you remember, NDM and OXA48, KPC Class A, NDM Class B, and OXA48 Class D. There are different countries with endemicity. For instance, KPC is endemic in United States, where it was described. The Klebsiella pneumoniae producing KPC for the first time was described in United States. NDM is endemic in India, where also was described, and the prevalence is really high. In fact, for those of you that are not familiarized with the taxonomy or nomenclature of carbapenemases, NDM means New Delhi beta-lactamase. Okay, and OXA48 is more prevalent in the Maghreb, in the north of Africa, in Morocco, Libya, Egypt, and also Turkey, as well in India. And it's related mainly to three main high-risk clones of Klebsiella, ST101, ST39, ST15. And probably from the north of Africa has jumped to Europe. And in Europe, we also have some outbreaks caused by OXA48. If we move to Pseudomonas aeruginosa, here you have data from 2015 and 2020. It has been a little bit a shift in the prevalence, just normalizing more or less the prevalence. Has not been a huge increase in the prevalence, as you can see here in the colors. Again, the most frequent multi-drug-resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa that you select or you detect in the clinical microbiology laboratory is related to these two high-risk clones, the ST235 and the ST111. If you take data from the ECDC, the country with a lower prevalence of multi-drug-resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa is Denmark with 3.3%. And the highest is Romania with 55.4%. Spain is 21.8%, and the overall mean in Europe is 16.5%. So we are, at least Spain is over the average of the prevalence in Europe. If we move to Acinetobacter baumannii, this is data from Spain. probably is already an old data because this is a comparative percentage of susceptibility from two different studies, one performed in 2000 and the other one performed in 2010. And as you can see here, between 2000 and 2020, there was a doubling the percentage of resistance to carbapenems in Acinetobacter baumannii from 48 to 82 for imipenem, or 43 to 83 for meropenem. It's important to highlight the fact that colistin has been used a lot to treat extended drug-resistant Acinetobacter baumannii, and this is why we shift from 0% of colistin-resistant Acinetobacter baumannii in 2000 to 3% in 2010. If we calculated the percentage of pan-drug-resistant bacteria in this study in 2010, we already had 2% of Acinetobacter baumannii which were pan-resistant. Again, resistant to all antimicrobial or antibacterial agents. Probably if we repeat the study in 2020, that will increase a lot. This is data from ECDC again, comparing 2014 and 2019. It has been an increase. You can see here in 2019, where most countries having either red or red dark color. That means with a prevalence higher than 50 or 75%. So it's a real problem. As we mentioned it before during the consortium, in these hospitals where they have a high prevalence of Acinetobacter baumannii, the number of infections caused by this microorganism and the mortality attributable to this infection is really high. And probably among all the clones that are disseminated all over the world, ST2 is the most frequent one that we can find all over the world, as I said. So in the second part of my talk, I would like to focus on the impact of COVID-19 on antibiotic resistance. This is data, is a review, is a meta-analysis where they analyzed 3,626 patients. The prevalence of antibiotic prescription was 74.6%, so in patients with COVID-19. When they calculated meta-regression and the prescription of antibiotic was lower in children compared to adults, but the prescription of antibiotic was higher with increased age of patients, of course, and higher with increased proportion of patients requiring mechanical ventilation. So probably was higher as well in patients in intensive care unit, as we will see in the next slides. Here is the different type of antibiotics that were used in the different areas: North America, Europe, China, Asia, not considering China. And as you can see here, for instance, in China, there was a huge prevalence of a huge use or consumption of fluoroquinolones comparing with other countries. When in this study, they stratify by patients in the outpatients, so we can consider patients in the community. 59% of the patients receive antibiotics. If we move into the hospital, overall 74.8% of the patients into the hospital receive antibiotics. And if we move to the patients in intensive care units, the percentage was 86.4. So 86.4% of the patients admitted in intensive care units were receiving antibiotics. This is a very recent data published in Eurosurveillance about the consumption of antibiotics, but in the community. And as you can see here, there has been a decrease in the comparing 2020 with 2019, a decrease in the use or the consumption of antibiotics in the community. So it seems like in the hospital has been a huge increase in the consumption of antibiotics, and in the community has been reversed, has been a decrease in the consumption of antibiotics. Although we need to see if there is this decrease in the consumption will stay, and we will revert again when we recover the normality, I would say. This is also data from the community, from Canada, as you can see here, from March 2020 on, there was also a decrease in the consumption of antibiotics compared between if we make a comparison between 2020 and 2019, there was a decrease in the consumption of antibiotics in the community in Canada. This again an increase in the consumption, and sorry, this is data from Taiwan, as you can see here, for some of the antibiotics. For instance, tigacycline, there was an increase in the consumption from 56% to 89%, from colistin from 63 to 78. So was an increase for some specific antibiotics, an increase in the consumption of these antibiotics in the nosocomial setting in the hospital. And in this study, they show an impact in the prevalence of multi-drug resistant microorganisms, mainly in Acinetobacter baumannii, as you can see here, where they compare the resistance to sulbactam, imipenem, and levofloxacin. Comparing 2019 to 2020, there was an increase in the resistance to sulbactam from 25 to 34%, to imipenem from 34% to 41%, and for levofloxacin from 28% to 36%. So it seems like probably there is an impact in this consumption of antibiotics in the prevalence of multi-drug resistant bacteria. This is a table that I have prepared in order to show you that even the treatment, this is our different studies from different countries, China, France, United Kingdom, United States, showing that the treatment using antibiotics of patients admitted into the hospital has been excessively high. I mean, it has been from 70% in the first study, 95, 100%, 94%, 97.8%. So it has been high consumption of antibiotics in the hospital. However, when we check the co-infections, bacterial co-infections of patients with COVID, if you see in this column, the percentage of co-infections by bacteria were really low, from 2% in the first study, 17% in the second one, 9.7%, 28% in this one of here. So in general, was really low. So this low prevalence of co-infections by bacteria didn't explain this high consumption of antibiotics. This is also a meta-analysis analyzing the use of antibiotics in the diagnosis of COVID. So 3.5% of patients had a co-infection in the diagnosis of COVID, only 3.5%. And in the admission during the hospital, we have 14.3% of the patients that acquire co-infection by a bacteria. If they compare as well all patients versus those patients admitted into the hospital, if we take as a population the all patients, 55.9% of all these all patients had a co-infection by a bacteria. However, if we just focus it on the critical patients, that increased to 8.1%. This is data from our hospital. This is data from the infection disease department. They analyzed 989 adults admitted to the hospital with COVID-19 for more than 48 hours. The co-infection was 7.4%, and this is mainly due to Streptococcus pneumoniae, 16.2%, Staph aureus 16%, Pseudomonas aeruginosa 13%, E. coli 9.5%, Klebsiella pneumoniae 8%, Enterococcus faecium 5.4%, and Haemophilus influenza 2.7%. It's important to highlight that both Streptococcus pneumoniae and Haemophilus influenza were associated with community-acquired pneumonia, which is obvious. And Staphylococcus aureus was associated with both community-acquired pneumonia and also hospital-acquired pneumonia. And these were the percentages. Why is this impact that we have seen of COVID-19 on antimicrobial resistance? Probably there are several factors. When we talk about antimicrobial resistance in general, we have to take into consideration two aspects. The first one is the emergence of multi-drug resistant bacteria, and the second one is the dissemination of this bacteria once it's already emerged. So the factors during the COVID have affected both the emergence of bacteria, of multi-drug resistant bacteria, or the resistant bacteria, and also the spread of resistant bacteria. The emergence has been probably related to over-prescribing antibiotics, as we have mentioned it, mainly in the nosocomial setting, not in the community, but yes, in the nosocomial setting. And also the limited resources in some countries, that it has been related to the emergence of multi-drug resistant bacteria. Whereas the spread of multi-resistant bacteria probably has been gone down, and this has been due to the fact that we have been in lockout for a long time. Of course, if we are on lockout, the socialization between us has been decreased, so we don't have in contact as much as we have a normal life. So social distancing have played probably an important role in the decreasing in the spread of multi-drug resistant bacteria. Another important point is the implementation of hand hygiene. You already know that probably washing your hands is the most useful measure to stop the spread of multi-drug resistant bacteria, and this has been incorporated in our routine life, the washing hands often. And again, when we talk about the spread of multi-drug resistant bacteria to a global level, one important issue is the traveling of one country to another one. In fact, we did a study a long time ago trying to analyze how many patients or people traveling abroad were coming back to Barcelona with multi-drug resistant bacteria in the intestinal tract. We found that 23% of the patients were coming back from this trip with a multi-drug resistant bacteria. However, when we analyzed the origin of this, or the country that was visited by this group of patients or this group of people, the people coming back from India, 1 out of 2 were coming back with a multi-drug resistant bacteria. So that's I think that is a number that is very scary, no? And in addition, later on there appeared another study done by a Swedish group that they did the same that we did us, try to calculate how many people coming back from a developing country were carrying multi-drug resistant bacteria in the intestinal tract. The percentage was a little higher, was 70% of the patients coming back from India were carrying multi-drug resistant bacteria. However, they could analyze these people during 1 year, and they realized that these people can transfer this multi-drug resistant bacteria to people living in the same house that were not traveling to India. So you are carrying the bacteria from India or in other countries, but in addition you can spread your multi-drug resistant bacteria to other people living in the same house. So as I said, international travel decrease has been also important in the dissemination of multi-drug resistant bacteria. And that's all. Thank you very much for your attention.